Before I start, I think the one thing I try to take great pride in is answering questions and not confusing your guys' job with my team's inability to play the right way. And I owe Andrew an apology. He's worked too hard to cover my team, cover our program. He covers recruiting. I've been begging for 8 years that I've been here for somebody to actually invest in covering men's basketball, and he's done that. And he had the right to ask me the question that he asked me last time we were in this room, and I needed to answer I didn't want to answer the question, but I needed to answer it for him because he's earned the right for me to give him an answer. Other people that, and no disrespect to people in the room, if you would ask a question, I wouldn't have answered it. But when you cover recruiting, when you get in your car, when you drive across the country, you get on planes to come cover my team, you've earned the right to ask me anything you want, and I failed that moment. So with that, I'll be more than happy to speak about my wonderful team right now. Yes, Dave.
I want to ask if anyone's available for Kentucky, but in the past, you guys, I think you said you credited Hassani a lot for going in and shooting balls afterward, and that was a big reason for his improvement from his junior to senior year. Mm-hmm. When a team is in a shooting kind of slump like it is of these last 3 games, obviously that's something they have to do on their own, but is that something this team has to go in there to figure it out, on their own? Because you've talked about the limited practice time ad nauseum at this point. What can they do to fix that problem?
Point guard play is a major problem for us right now. I'm not trying to blame an individual. It's my job. I've got to do a better job on getting those guys to understand what I want, because our point guard play right now, in all aspects, defensively, from little things like where to get for an outlet pass. I'm a big believer that there's no such thing as little things and big things. I think everything adds up to either success or failure. It's not such that little thing this, little thing that, big thing, blocking a shot, taking. No, they're all responsibilities. I don't think one has more value than the other, okay? And right now our point guard play is not adding up for us to succeed. With teams that have point guard play, you usually don't have good shooting. But my biggest frustration right now is not that they're not going to put in the time, is we got no personality at our guard spot. There's just no personality. The only guy that gives us a personality is Jermaine. That's as honest an answer as I can give you there. And I'm a big believer that, Sindarius didn't know how to work on his game when he got here. Had no idea. He was a 32% shooter his first 2 years here. And it wasn't because he couldn't make shots. He just didn't know how to work on his game. So he'd come in and he'd do everything I asked. He gave us personality. He gave us the fight. He got where he was supposed to, and he was willing to go take the shot. It just wouldn't go in for him consistently. But because of all the other things, as he started to connect, let me go on the gym on my own and work on these things. Michael Carrera, same way. Dwayne noted. Dwayne didn't come here as a shooter. Dwayne worked his rear end off to become a shooter. But they all had personality, and that's what I'm pushing for right now. I'm lacking in connecting with our guards. And I'm not about me as the head coach. It's you talk about teams take on the personality of their head coach. I think all you guys have been around me. I think I'm safe. You wouldn't hurt my feelings if you said this team doesn't have my personality. If you wrote that, you're writing the truth. So you're not going to hurt my feelings. So, and that comes from, missing guys like Hassani. Here's the deal with Hassani. Hassani, you brought him up, so I'm going to describe him to you. Okay, you go through life, and it's all about dealing with challenges, not running away from them, trying to get to the other side so you can be better for the experience. Hassani was never going to run away from a challenge. Hassani was just too stubborn to listen to anybody on how to deal with the challenge. And so everybody would just let him go burn because it's hard. And it's really hard when you got to do it on your own. And it's not until he learned how to listen that he learned how to, oh, so you're actually trying to help me, not trying to tell me how to do things, that then he understood how to deal with adversity and have people trust him while he's dealing with it. And as he learned that, then he became a better teammate. As a better teammate, then he can help others. But he was never, he was just stubborn. He couldn't help himself. It's just who he is. I'm stubborn, so I don't get mad at stubborn people. Right now, we're trying to figure out what guys actually want to go deal with adversity. And that's where the lack of connection with me is coming. Because I've taken a lot of pride in, let's just use my college basketball years, because you guys don't know anything about my high school years. But in my 12 years, what's 13 now? 13 years as a head coach, I don't hide. I don't run. I stand tall, and that don't mean I don't hurt in private, but my teams have always been that way. And I think we're not there with this team, and I'm trying to figure out what I have to do better to help figure that part out.
Kind of following up on that, you mentioned Jermaine. Is there a scenario where you could see him playing more point guard minutes? And when he does play there, like he kind of did against Tennessee, what does he give you?
Personality. Fearlessness, aggression, all the things that I'm struggling to find with our guard play right now. And, playing him at the point is very similar to when Sin was a freshman. And I think I spoke about that when Ty broke his foot, at the moment I was furious that the one point guard we had on our team breaks his foot, because now that team was going to be handicapped to win. And truth be told, yeah, it became really, really hard to win that year. But the guy with the most personality on our team got the ball put in his hands. And because of that, moving forward, I think we became a better team as time went on. And, Jermaine's kind of along those lines. He's a guy that when he's played point is to go get a shot, not run a team. But he's probably got the best understanding of what I want, and the loudest voice and the most aggressive game of all our guards. So that option's on the table right now.
What's the difference between a guy who understands how to practice to improve his shooting and a guy who doesn't?
Those chairs that all these great workout guys use in today's day and age, and the belts with the rubber bands and all that stuff.
I'm not a great workout guy, but I think I know.
There's all kinds of unbelievable workout techniques out there, and the problem is those chairs don't actually have arms or a heartbeat, and those rubber bands don't get in your way. So all these kids have, they all got these people that are trying to make a living. I get it. I ain't mad at it. I'm not into criticizing how other people work. Everyone is trying to make a living in some way, shape, or form. I'm all in. The problem is that in today's day and age, you come off that chair, you're always open. That chair never actually puts its arms up and contests your shot. That chair never gets through the screen to make your cut uncomfortable. When you make your inside out, double crossover, inside out, double step back into a fadeaway three, which is what they teach at these workouts, by the way, that chair actually never moves, so you're real comfortable. Well, all of a sudden you get to a college basketball game and none of that crap works, because the guy in front of you, let's use this last game, Jordan Bowden, East Palms, they're not letting you. They're like, no, man, you're not coming off the screen. And so now you have to understand how to use a screen. You got a window to make a decision of a shot or a pass. It's that big. And so guys have to adjust to that. And like Sin never really understood that dynamic. So that's why his shooting percentage was down. So, you can come in the gym and take a ball and shoot 100 set shots from three. That's nice. How many set shots do guys actually get in a game in today's day and age, the way a game's defended? Excuse me. So it's a matter of comprehending the different techniques and the different things that you have to practice, but then more importantly, do it with, like, I don't like saying the analogy live bullets. I'm not into that, but with me, like, let's say Josh, you and I go in the gym. It can't be me coming off a chair, you passing me the ball, me shooting. That serves a purpose, but eventually it's got to be, John passing me the ball with you defending me coming off the chair. And does that make sense what I'm saying? So I learned how to operate in that small window because the game's defended differently than it was 20 years ago.
Once a player gets to be 18, let's say just kind of the age you get them, do you believe you can drastically improve their shooting, just their shooting ability, their percentage?
The ones that are Cinderius, the ones that are willing to listen and embrace reality and not pass on blame, and yes, Michael Carrera, Chris Silva, keep going. I can keep going on and on throughout my Jacob Pullen. Jacob Pullen was an awful shooter as a freshman, first-team All-American, 21 a game as a senior. I mean, yes. The answer to that is yes. We fight two things. Number one is that they're not held accountable in high school anymore, okay, for whatever reasons. It's a societal problem, not a basketball problem. So when things get hard, we pass blame and we run away from adversity. We don't embrace it. We don't take it on. We don't hold them accountable to have to learn, have to embrace it, and be willing to listen to get better. That's number one. Number two, when you get to college, well, we've passed all these great rules that limit how much time I can actually be in a gym to help somebody. So if I can't be on the court with you, then all I can do is maybe visit with you in my office and explain to you, but then you got to do it on your own. So who's willing to embrace it? A lot of guys nod their heads, say, hey, I get it. And then they go across the street and play video games. That's the way of society today. I mean, there's two things that you can never circumvent in your journey to get better, to find success. That's your education and your work ethic. If you circumvent either one of those two things, you got no chance of getting better. And that's getting harder and harder with 18-year-olds. But the ones that listen and are willing to put in the time and they embrace work, they don't run away from adversity, yeah, of course, they just don't even go back to the K-State days. Just here alone. Dwayne Notice, Cinderius, Chris Silva, Michael Carrera, Mendogas from a freshman to a senior. I mean, just, it goes on and on.
Coach, looking at Tennessee, you mentioned after the game that your team got beat, you didn't lose. Mm-hmm. Does that change the preparation game to game when you look at a team that you got overmatched, or does it look kind of the same in terms of preparing for the next game when you get beat versus when you lose?
Yeah, what I mean by that is sometimes you create your own problems. And when you create your own problems, that means you lose. When you get beat, that means that the other team created the problems. And Tennessee defensively created major problems for us. I thought we did some really good things. I thought we defended better, but part of that is that they're searching for that point guard play like us, so it kind of, they don't have Nimhart. They don't have, going down the line, some of the guys we've played. But I'm not going to take anything away from our guys. I thought we defended better. Not great, better. We fouled too much. And bad fouls. I really don't change my approach. I used to. I used to be full of you-know-what and vinegar after a bad day, whether it was a game or a practice, and I'd come in that way the next day. And luckily for me, I think I've grown up as a human being, as a coach, and I realize that just dwelling on yesterday is not fixing anything. So I've become bigger on accountability, on rather than me be mad and holding it in and then being negative the next day. express the truth and expect people to embrace the truth and self-reflect a lot as to what I can do better to prevent us from having a bad day that makes us lose rather than someone beating us. We lose sense of the fact that, since you guys, it's not fair to say you guys, since the public loves to bring up coaching salaries for all the bad, Rick makes a lot more money than me, okay? So obviously he's pretty good at what he does. So I think he's preparing his team to win. And I don't know recruiting budgets, but I'm sure, let's say we spend the same amount of money. So that means he's recruiting good players too. So sometimes we lose perspective of that. They're pretty good. We just played in front of 21,000 people. So we dealt with a home court environment, and it did not affect us. We never flinched for all the outside things. So that's why I said we didn't lose. They beat us. They just made more plays than we did. But I've gotten to a place in my life where I don't change. I don't approach the next day with yesterday's feelings involved. I don't know if that makes sense or not. If I feel that there's a player that's preventing us from winning, then I'm going to have personal conversations with that person to make sure that they don't get in our way. And then my team conversations are going to be about what we need from the majority of the guys to offset any negativity that it might exist. So that's the way I try to do my job right now.
You've talked a little bit about the team lacking some personality, getting quiet, that kind of thing. Is there a point in the season where team personality kind of is what it is? Can it always kind of evolve, or how can you kind of spur that process a little bit, or is it just on them?
I just got to keep pushing. That's why I share it with you, because I push it on them every single day. And I'm not trying to blame. I'm not trying to sit here and blame that for losing. That's just the one common trait of any good team is you can hear their voice. You can feel their presence. And right now, when things are hard, you don't hear our voice and you don't really feel our presence. And all I can do is keep pushing. I can't. The day I stop pushing, then we're going to lose. The day I stop pushing, then I'm not doing my job. And all I got to do is I got to keep pushing. I got to keep trying to figure out how to do it better to get somebody to take ownership. That's all it is. And when you have so many young guys, for lack of better words, But you know what's a saving grace to me? When I speak with some of my peers in the business, we're all battling the same thing. Especially teams that have young players, we're all battling the same thing. So, sometimes you sit around and you're so consumed with your own problems that you think you're the only one in the world that's got those problems. When you speak with your peers and you realize that they're battling some of the same issues, I think it's a societal thing. I don't think it's a South Carolina locker room thing. It's getting harder and harder every year for those two things to be in place. And I think those two things come from education and work ethic. When you work at something, you don't quit at it. When you work at something, when it gets hard, you get louder and more aggressive, not more passive and quieter. When you're held accountable to education, like I'm not going to give you who, and I never would, but it's a general comment. We got some guys that should be 4.0 students, but they're happy being 2.5 student. It's not because of me. It's what they've been allowed to do for 18 years before they got here. Now I'm the one and our academic people that are challenging them to understand, like, why accept being a 2.5 when you can be a 4.0 guy, man? That's how smart you are. It's all a matter of sense of urgency, of work ethic, and committing. And what they don't understand yet, they will, is how all that connects to basketball. It's all connected. You don't just work at what you like and don't work at other things. Everything and as you go through your journey, everything's connected. And it's a matter of embracing all your responsibilities, not just part of them. And it doesn't mean that you work harder at books than the game or the game than books. No, that's not what it means. It means that you're in college. And in college, you got books and the game. So you got to work hard at both. You can't just take it for granted, because that's not your whole responsibility. So when you get married and have children, so what are you going to do? Pay attention to your kids, ignore your wife? No, man. You know, and you got a job and you got 3 different job titles. What are you going to do? Do 2 of them and ignore the third? All those things get you kicked out of the house or fired. I'm trying to help these kids understand that day's coming.
After these 3 games, there's kind of been some mounting frustration with this fan base. I don't know how much you've heard or seen of it. Is it hard to kind of tune out that outside noise? And how hard is it to get your guys who are 18, 19 years old to kind of tune that out?
I do everything opposite than you. That means I don't read chat rooms. I'm not into gossip. I'm not into tell me one positive thing that comes out of social media. So why do you worry about it? You got a job to do. Interview me, interview the players. Why are you listening to people who have no idea what we go through? You know, why don't you go call the people that were positive 3 games ago? We had just beaten Virginia. Call them or email them or send them a tweet or something. See what they got to say. You know, it's. Can you imagine if those people actually coached or played? The ones that quit with 17, 16 games ago in the season? We're that close, okay? We just played Florida, who everyone predicted to be the best team in the league, okay? And we went and played at Tennessee in front of 21,000 people. The Stetson deal, I get it, man. That's on me. I'm not. That was embarrassing. I told you I've never been more embarrassed for the way my team played as I was that day. But, and I get we didn't beat Florida. I get we didn't beat Tennessee. We just played in front of 21,000 people against a team that won the league 2 years ago, that, won the league 2 years ago, lost on the last day last year to win the league again, who returns their 2-guard, 5th-year senior center, senior 2-guard, senior center, 3-year starter in East Palms. I'm missing somebody. 3-year guy that's played all 3 years, and Jalen Johnson. We just lost. I mean, so I'm not trying to make fun of what you do, but I don't know. I just say, and you can quote me on this, let's be glad they're not playing or coaching at South Carolina, or the rest of the season be a major problem.
You got an extra day to prepare, but what are your early impressions on this version of Cal's Kentucky team?
He's using his bigs as much as he has in the low post, you know, because like P.J. Washington last year is P.J. and Reed Travis. He put the ball in their hands a lot. P.J. usually on the left side of the floor, Reed Travis on the right. This year he's really, really doing an unbelievable job of posting Nick Richards up, which is a little different than what he's done with Nick the first 2 years. He's probably gone a little bit more to that dribble drive offense that he ran at Memphis, because he's playing 3 guards. He's playing. Oh my God! I recruited him. You think I know his name? Ashton Hagans. Jeez, Ashton Hagans quickly, and the freshman Maxey. He's playing those 3 guys together a lot. And they're all about the same size. So last year he was doing a lot of, we call it floppy in basketball, basically single, double screens out of the baseline for Tyler Hero and young man Johnson. And this year he's doing a lot more kind of play through the big, open, drive the ball than he did last year. That's the biggest difference. But really physical at the rim. I've said this before. Cal does a great job of managing his team as the year goes on, because he's got so many first-year guys. I think he's got a better feel because he's got guys that have been with him for a couple of years now. You know, Quickly's a sophomore. The other one's a sophomore. The big kid, one's a junior, one's a sophomore. You know, so he's got some returning guys, so he understands them better. So I think he's been able to adapt. He's got a famous word he likes to use, tweak. He's been able to tweak a little sooner in the season than he usually does. But that just comes that, he's got guys that he's been around for a while.
Following up on that, they once again aren't a team that necessarily shoots the three all that well, and so whereas you run into a lot in terms of scrambling and recovering when a point guard gets downhill, the drive and kick, they're a little bit more of a drive and lob approach to things. How does that change what you have to do, or does it, in terms of your man-to-man when you were rotating and trying to recover?
Well, that's going to put a tremendous stress on something that we've been average at best, which is containing the ball off the dribble this year. That's going to be our challenge in our man-to-man defense, is to be able to put up a fight. You know, we got too many guys that want to defend after the guy catches the ball. It's too late. Too late. You got to defend before he catches it. And then once he catches it, you're in for the fight of your life. And that's the mindset you got to take on every single time. And we got too many guys that don't understand that yet. That goes back to personality, sense of urgency. You know, we're 3 months into this thing. I was hoping we'd be better at that by now than what we are. But we're not. So obviously, I've got to do a better job of being clear on what we're not doing right. And players got to do a better job of having a sense of urgency of doing that a little bit better than they've done before. And you know, Derek, but at the end, yes, that's where, instead of playing through his guards for jump shots, they're driving to create fouls, shoot free throws, and play off lobs and miss shots, offensive rebounds. Because when you drive the ball and your bigs are forced to help to protect the rim, it opens up offensive rebounding. And that's, you think Chris Silva, Sindarius, P.J. Dozier, a lot of driving, help, offensive rebound. Then you think Chris Silva the last 2 years, not a lot of driving. So it was more low post play, more, and that's what you're seeing from Kentucky this year, that he's playing through the low post because I think Nick Richards has earned that because he's gotten better as a player. But their production's coming from their dribble drives and plays at the rim rather than the jump shot.
On the same lines of Kentucky, when they have, you know, Ashton Hagans who plays at a spot point guard that a position that you've been struggling at this year. I mean, goes without saying, how challenging is this matchup? And you talked about Jermaine earlier. Is that someone that you like in that matchup a little bit, maybe more so than obviously he didn't play against Nemhard and he gave you problems. What is Ashton Hagans like, and what personnel can you do to kind of contain him?
Yeah, that's just people taking on the challenge. Jermaine's not running away from a single challenge, not one. He's not, and I'm not saying that the other guys run away from it. I need them to be more aggressive at running to the challenge rather than standing there and hoping somebody else does. And that's where, if I had guys that were running away from it, we wouldn't be that close. We wouldn't have done some of the good that we've done already this year. But we got too many guys that kind of stand around hoping somebody else does it. And Jermaine don't care. Jermaine's kind of like, where are we going? There? Come on, let's go. And whatever's coming is coming, and he's ready to deal with it. That's why his loss, even though his shooting numbers have not been great, that's where his loss against Florida really hurt us, is that personality that he brings to the table. Ashton's, he's wired to compete. I mean, one of the reasons I recruited him, one of the reasons I think him and his dad enjoyed the relationship that we built in recruiting is that I'm kind of wired to compete too. And those two things kind of connected there in the recruiting process. So he loves challenges. I mean, hard-nosed defensively. I mean, bringing the ball up the court against him is a problem because he's so good at guarding the basketball. He disrupts your point of entry on offense. And that's something that we haven't been good against this year. When we've played teams that are defensively aggressive, that disrupt point of entry, we've struggled to be able to make 3 passes and get a good shot. So, so all those things taken into consideration, that's going to be a big matchup in the game on Wednesday, and we have to offset that intangible that Ashton brings. He brings this aggression that all good teams and all good players have, and he's a much better basketball player than he was at this time last year. So, you know, it's he's a big part of their team.
Reports out of Miami this morning are indicating the Heat are going to take Chris off that 2-way deal and give him a primary contract. Just what's your first thought when you hear that?
Yeah, I've kind of known that was going to happen for a month or so now, but it's professional basketball, and in that world, because salaries and numbers, and you just never know until you actually put your name on a piece of paper. My fingers are crossed that if I'm not mistaken, it's in the next, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I was going to say the next 48 hours. It's something that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen soon here. I'm ecstatic. No one deserves it better than Chris because of how much he cares, the human being that he is, the amount of work that he's put in, how he has sacrificed to help others. I say this story all the time. I got home one night his sophomore year, and it's when we were going through all the injuries and the stuff in the middle of the season, and I was all over him because he needed to play better. For that team to be better during that stretch. And I came home one night and I said to my wife, I said, I think I was really just too hard on Chris today. And she said to me, you think? You know, because she's right behind the bench. She knows what's going on. And she don't need to read my lips or listen to sound bites or clips. She knows when I'm happy and when I'm mad. And so I came in the next day and I called Chris in. I said, Chris, dude, my bad, man. I'm coming at you too hard. I'm putting too much pressure on you to lead this team and to play better, and you don't deserve that. You know, we're going to figure this out. He looked at me all confused, and he said, I didn't come here for you to be nice to me. I came here because you're going to challenge me every day, so you better not stop. That's who he is. That's a true story. That's who he is, and that's why that team goes to a Final Four, because like him, there were other guys just like that. And so anything good that happens to him, he deserves that and a whole lot more. So I'm excited. I know he's excited. I talked to him yesterday. I know he's excited, and I pray that he stays healthy. And like I tell him, don't ever change. You know, who you are is what's gotten you to where you're at. Don't deviate from being that moving forward. All right, guys.